Muted. I can't hear. I don't know what's happening. You were. Were we live? I'm live now. Hey, everybody, it's Karen Anderson with Aortic Hope, and we are live for a special Q&A, another one for this Aortic Disease Awareness Month as we're rapidly approaching Aortic Dissection Awareness Week and Day. Everybody's got their own ways that they like to follow it. Hey, I think the more the merrier. The more we can get this out and get the awareness going, the better. But we're here with a very special guest and my friend that I get to see I'm counting down the days. We have Gareth Owens from ADA UKI acronym.
Very special month.
Yeah, so
can't wait to see you in Edinburgh next week.
Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. I do a lot of that, a lot of me talking over you because I just do when I get excited over anybody. It's not just you. But I need you to tell everybody who you are and what you have done, because there's, new people joining the community all the time. And, I know we only do this, it seems like once a year, maybe twice a year, when we're getting all the new countries signed up with Think Aorta. And we'll get back into that in a minute. Please take the floor, my friend, and tell everybody who you are.
Hey, thanks, Karen. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Gareth Owens. You can probably tell from my accent that I'm not in the US. I'm from Wales. So I don't want to hear anybody going home and saying there was this guy from England on tonight, because I'm from Wales, which is where the British people went when the Romans invaded. Okay, so the original sort of Celtic people lived in the UK. Some of you will know me. I'm an aortic dissection survivor, like Karen. I had an acute type B dissection in 2016 in London. I've had surgeries to repair my aorta, and the guys in Bart's Hospital in London did really, really well for me. And kind of when that happened, as a lot of you will know, you sort of and I met a bunch of other survivors in our community here in the UK, which is just like Aortic Hope, but for Brits. And we kind of said, what should we do about this disease to raise awareness? And we created a charity, Aortic Dissection Awareness UK and Ireland, and I now lead that charity. And one of the things that was to create the Think Aorta campaign, you can see behind me, which is all about saving lives with aortic dissection, training clinicians to recognize the signs and symptoms and get that early CT scan. So that's me. I chair the National Patient Charity in the UK and Ireland, and I lead the Think Aorta campaign. And Karen and I have struck up a friendship and a partnership between our organizations, and we do loads of stuff together. And it's just fantastic to work with Aortic Hope.
It's always so wonderful. I always tell people I want to be like Gareth when I grow up. I think I'm still, our organization's still in the teenage years, and you're a great model for us. I've always appreciated everything you've done from early on when I came in as a survivor, and I had a chance online to meet Dan Burgess and started seeing all these sayings and things like today's a good day. And as a patient, when you hear things like that, it kind of helps. It helps mold you for the life that now you're going to have to learn how to make the most of. And it is a striking tagline that you guys have of today is a good day. I think it does stop you and makes you think, no matter what's going on, really, is it really a bad day, or is it a good day, or is it just a day? But anytime you wake up, it's a good day, I think.
I'll tell you the story behind that. So,
please.
There's a really interesting story behind that. Actually, you mentioned Dan. So Dan, I think all of us who have a dissection, one of the most important things we can do is to connect with somebody else on the journey. And I was in intensive care at in a hospital in London, having been diagnosed with this dissection, waiting to know what surgery were they going to do to fix my aorta. Very high risk of not surviving, the scary stuff of having to say goodbye to your family just in case you don't make it through the surgery. And I was Googling, and I came across this Facebook group run by this guy, Dan Burgess, called Aortic Dissection Buddies. And I reached out to him, and Dan was a black cab driver in London. He was living with a type B medically managed dissection, driving around the streets of London in his taxi. In between fares, he was running this Facebook group for survivors. And so that was how I connected with the first other person I knew who'd had an aortic dissection. And I remember, Dan, after I'd had my surgery, I was in intensive care and I was feeling very rough, like you do. And, felt like I'd been run over by a truck. And Dan said to me one day, he said, Gareth, he said, take your pulse every morning when you wake up. He said, take your pulse. If you can feel it, today is a good day. And that's kind of the motto that we all kind of adopted, And I always think that it could be so much worse, but actually, if you can feel your pulse, today's a good day.
That's right. I agree with you. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the, well, there's a lot of differences between our countries and how we're operating. So what are some of your areas of focus and what you do, what your mission and your goal is with ADA UKI? Because with us, our mission every day, we have to remain focused with blinders on because we get easily distracted, and it's very hard in our position with our passion to want to do and be everything to everyone. And there's just not enough time to do that, and it's almost impossible. And our focus is just making sure people do have a sense of hope and have a sense of purpose, that we provide them with the support and resources and accurate information. It's kind of where that's a lot right there, but that's kind of our like little buckets in a big bucket. So tell everybody a little bit about the differences in what ADA UKI does.
Yeah, that's so important. So we are the national patient charity for aortic dissection. So our main thing is supporting patients and families affected by aortic dissection. So we've kind of got 4 pillars in the organization. The first one is patient and family support. So like you guys, we have a community online of about 1,000 people around the UK and Ireland who are every day, every hour supporting each other online. It's a peer support group. Now, we have some clinicians in there as well. We have some aortic specialist nurses. It's a moderated group. It's a private group where people can, if they're having a bad day, they can talk about it and find help and support. So we have a survivors group. We have a bereaved relatives group. And we have a caregivers group, all of which are active in providing belonging and support and information to the community. So that, in a sense, is very similar to what you guys do, So, and it's the most important thing. There are 4 pillars of the organization. That's the first. The second pillar is we got very worried when we realized as survivors that we were in a small minority of people who survived this thing.
Yeah.
And we realized that there were a lot of people in the UK, at least, and indeed around the world, who don't make it because they are misdiagnosed or they're delayed in reaching surgery. So the second thing we launched was Think Aorta. And that's the second pillar of our organization, to save lives in aortic dissection. And so we do that, and we run that campaign with the relevant healthcare organizations. In the UK, it's the Royal College of Emergency Medicine, the Society for Cardiothoracic Surgery. In the US, Karen, you've tied up with STS, SVS, and the American College of Emergency Physicians. So that it's a partnership campaign with healthcare professionals. That's the second thing we do. The third thing we do is we work with our health system to improve care. So with a voice of the patients into the health system. So on Saturday, I was at the annual meeting of all of the UK aortic surgeons, and they asked me to speak on behalf of the charity and say, what do patients want from aortic surgeons over the next 3 years? So we talked about how surgery could improve. We talked about rehabilitation. We talked about mental health support. We talked about consistent quality of care across the country. And we are able to challenge the healthcare system to do better for our community. So that's our third thing. And our fourth thing is also about improvement. We partner with researchers. So there's a lot of things we just don't know about aortic dissection, even medical professionals don't know. So what we do is we provide a patient voice and a partnership to research. So we just, for 5 years now, since you came to Leicester, actually, we've been running a little research program looking at screening of families for their risk of aortic disease, because our community told us that they start to worry about their family. So looking at family screening for risk of thoracic aortic disease. And if we're successful, we will put maybe 25,000 people under surveillance to prevent future dissections.
That's
So
amazing.
research is our fourth thing. So those are our four pillars of what we do, really. And we get asked to do lots of other things, but we're very, very focused on those four things.
It's amazing. The bandwidth. I mean, I just literally made a statement that, we can't be everything to everyone, but okay, there you go. You're being everything to everyone.
So just those four things.
Just those four. They give you some free time to enjoy your life. It is incredible. I mean, and if it wasn't that our countries, we're so glaringly different, getting involved in research or advocacy and lobbying and stuff like that with government would be so interesting. But what a headache for me to even think about that.
Yeah.
It's every state is its own mini bizarre government, and it's just I can leave that to somebody else and just keep doing what we know we do really well. If I want to live a nice long life, I'm going to do that.
It is very frustrating, and it changes every 4 years, So,
I mean, in some regards, thank goodness. And let's talk a little. I want to delve into Think Aorta, because that is how we met. Honestly, that's how it all started in 2019. So let's talk about that, how it got started, and where we're at with Think Aorta globally, because that's exciting.
It is. I mean, it's just exceeded all our expectations, I think, through the efforts of people like yourself and Ben Udelman. So, as I mentioned earlier, as survivors, we're in a minority. And we decided that we needed to care for the people getting the care that we got that kept us alive.
Right.
And when we looked at it, and they said, we know it's a real problem. Would you work with us? So we kind of pushed on this open door.
Yeah.
And we said, what can we do? And they said, well, most ED clinicians, difficult disease to diagnose. So actually some education would be good. So we came up with the Think Aorta campaign. So the Think Aorta was a slogan that the patients had come up with. And we all realized that our lives had been saved because somebody had thought aorta when we turned up with our symptoms and had very quickly put us in a CT scan and then very quickly got us to surgery. So that was the basis of the campaign. And then the Royal College, with their expertise, helped us to do the detail about symptoms and risk factors and how to make the diagnosis. And we said, how do we communicate this? And we said, we need a poster, but we need a really high impact poster. We need a poster that in every ED in the UK and Ireland, that even if you are running past the notice board with a crash trolley, something still goes in.
Yeah.
And that's why what you see behind me is so bold and bright and high impact, that even if you're running past, you read the words Think Aorta. And then maybe you come back later and you find out what it's all about.
Right.
So that's how the campaign came about. We partnered with a charity called Heart Research UK, because we weren't a charity at the time. We were just an association of patients. And they very kindly funded the first print and distribution of the posters all over the UK and Ireland. So we sent a tube of 10 posters with a letter to the senior emergency medicine consultant in every hospital in Britain and Ireland. And these posters started appearing. We set up a website, and a Facebook group. People started sending us pictures of where they'd seen posters, what they'd done with their teams. And suddenly, people started to say, oh, I saw your poster and I diagnosed an aortic dissection last night because I had read it. And so we have people in the community now whose lives were saved because of a medic read a Think Aorta poster. Right. So that's how we kind of got going. And it was very much just in the UK and Ireland, just a poster, but it's had a big impact.
Yeah. Yes, it has. It's had a huge impact because then we received a grant, which, I'm still amazed that I'm a nonprofit at that point. We're 1 year in to being a nonprofit, and I didn't even know what to do with this grant. But I read it, and it was a family wanted to give us some money to help with efforts of educating first responders because this particular woman's husband was misdiagnosed and lost a kidney. Could have been a lot worse, but she just felt that from the moment that you're picked up in an ambulance, if the conversations are happening then when they transfer you and drop you off at the hospital, somebody there can say, this is what we believe it is. Maybe think about a CT. We watch a lot of TV shows, so we think that's how it works. But still, I understood they were looking for education, resources, and that's how I met Ben. Ben was calling me for a completely different. Ben was calling us on the recommendation of my surgeon, who is 2 different states. I don't even know if you knew the story. And Ben called like at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Udelman. Do you have a second?" And I was like, "Yes. How can I help you?" And he said, blah blah blah. Do you think that if I had caregivers who were in the waiting room that really needed to talk to somebody, you could take those calls, throughout the night? And I just said, absolutely. I had no clue who was going to do it, but I said, absolutely. And it ended up being Greg Greenberg who would do that.
Right,
But that's how our relationship initially was, is that we were supposed to help provide him with his patient base and caregivers with a service of just kind of explaining what was happening behind the doors, and what to expect, and answer any questions from our personal experience.
Yeah.
Well, the next day I talked with Ben again, and I told him about this grant, and he's like, well, I talk to the emergency personnel all the time. I give speeches, I give, these lectures. And we both literally almost at the exact same time said, why don't we do this Think Aorta campaign? Maybe we can do that, because it's two such simple words that are making such an incredible impact and saving lives. And so we came together with his grassroots nonprofit at the time, Aortic Bridge, that he had just formed right before he met me, and actually some staff from the John Ritter Foundation. They were like, oh, well, we want to kind of check it out and see what this is. So we all went into our bank accounts, pulled together our own personal cash to create these posters to go out to 4,500 emergency rooms across the United States. We used that grant money, personal funds, what have you, and kind of just, we're going to launch this and see where it went. And then we had some magnets that Ben would run in the darkness of night and throw up on an ambulance and then run away really quickly. And they would find it on there. Not like a Ring camera didn't pick that up, but, it was picking up steam. I mean, we had the business sense from one organization, the passion from a physician on another. And, our decisions were, if they weren't going to put it in the ED, we were telling them to put it in the bathroom, because we knew in the bathroom, they're going to take a second to read it, because you have at least a second, right? You would hope you have a little bit more. And we realized that that was actually a very effective place to read a poster. And for here to get them into all of the EDs meant going through risk management and all these like departments that hold it up, and then it collects dust on a shelf. And we were like, we're not doing that. We're moving past everybody. We're not going to have any hospitals on the poster. So there's no interest there's nothing that's this conflict of interest with any hospital systems. And that really worked. And we did that twice. So after we did that, and then we ran into COVID, and they wouldn't let us in the door anymore. And we couldn't because we had patients all over the place taking posters, walking them into their physicians. I mean, this is truly patient led, and it's the best way to do it. Boom, we run into COVID and those efforts stop. Coming out of COVID was our time to really attack from the medical conference standpoint. And having a salesperson like Ben holding Think Aorta posters under each arm, like the tablets of the 10 Commandments, he was everybody, he had everybody coming over, and we gave away shirts, and everybody loves free things. And it just took off like wildfire here, to the point that I wanted to lock it down the way that things are in this country by making it a nonprofit, by having that licensing and the rights, and everything was signed, sealed, delivered with you. And then we knew that whoever wanted to promote this in this country, we're going to have to follow some rules and regulations. And we wanted to make sure it was always going to remain patient-led. And so that's kind of what we did. And then when you told me about the next country, I'm like, wait a minute, but this is going around the planet. This is crazy. This is so tell everybody where it is now. It's amazing.
So the US was the first country that approached us and said, can we take what you guys have done, because we've got the same problem, and you've described what happened very well. And what we look for is a patient lead and a clinical lead in every country. And we said to you and Ben, You could be Karen, you're the patient lead for Think Aorta US.
Yeah.
Ben is the clinical lead. What a cardiac surgeon of his standing. What a fantastic individual to have standing behind the medical side of Think Aorta.
Right.
And then you guys went and got your national associations on board. So you had STS and SVS and ACEP who said, we back this. And it became an incredibly powerful campaign.
Yeah.
Then other countries started to come to us, so having done that with you guys, we had a model to be able to help other countries to take the campaign. So Canada came to us, and Spain came to us, and Brazil came to us. Wow, the Brazilians. I mean,
So
it was during COVID. It was
Yeah.
during COVID, but I would love to have done this event because they translated the poster into Portuguese. They call it Pense Aorta. And they just had this huge launch party with people in Pense Aorta t-shirts, and they went on the conference circuit. And there are 2 vascular surgeons in Brazil in different hospitals. And they rolled it out, and one of the hospitals has now become an aortic center for Brazil. So it's really great to see how Think Aorta has been a catalyst for improvement in aortic healthcare in a country like Brazil. So we know at this moment in time, the poster has been translated into the native language of more than 50% of the world's population. Okay.
Wow.
So we have Spanish, we have French, we have Portuguese, we have Malay, we have Chinese, we have Arabic.
I saw that.
So,
yeah.
We just launched the Arabic poster. 400 million people in the world read Arabic.
Right.
And I have feedback from an Arabic-speaking vascular surgeon on Friday who said, there is zero awareness in the Arabic world about aortic dissection, Think Aorta. How can I help you promote this Arabic campaign? So I think that's out there. We went to, we launched Think Aorta Canada in April with GARDA, the Genetic Aortic Diseases Association of Canada. And we launched it at the American Association of Thoracic Surgeons conference in Toronto. So I came to Toronto, and at
amazing.
Because everybody's got the same problem. And Think Aorta is such it seems to be a very simple and well-recognized solution to that problem. So actually next week, Think Aorta Egypt is launching. So there's just we've got some big announcements. There was a big announcement on the weekend. Actually, this is relevant to you guys in the US. The Marfan Foundation, who are people very dear to my heart because I have Marfan syndrome, have announced that they are aligning themselves to support the Think and help amplify the message around the world, not just in the US, around the world.
Right.
So you and I and our organizations are going to work with the Marfan Foundation, because if you've got Marfan's or Loeys-Dietz or vascular aortic syndrome, your risk of having an aortic dissection is 250 times higher than the normal population. Now, the problem with that is that's a really high risk, and still sometimes dissections get missed in Marfan's patients.
Yeah.
But we've talked, Marfan's has been known about for 120 years. And in the 20th century, that was all people knew about dissection. If you had a dissection, they'd think, oh, you must have Marfan's. But there are many, many more people without Marfan's who have dissections. And the risk is that because we only have that sort of partial thinking about these particular genes that cause it, we might miss others. So I think we have to have that balance, and we do have that balance because we care about everybody who has an aortic dissection, but it's great to have the Marfan Foundation on board. Next week, another very large European partner is announcing their support for the Think Aorta campaign. Can't tell you who that is yet, but stay tuned on the 19th of September.
I know, but I'm not going to say.
Yes, you're to save lives in aortic dissection.
It really is.
And it's an umbrella that everybody can come under. We're very inclusive. It's simply about saving lives. It's not about promoting a product. It's not about making money. It's not about promoting a hospital. It's about saving lives, and it's led by patients. We welcome anybody who shares that vision of making a difference in the diagnosis of aortic dissection to come and work with us.
And I look forward to some of these other countries, what they find works really well for them in their education and distribution. Because for us, we came up with this idea of personalizing the posters. There were a lot of hospitals that said, can I put my logo? Can I put our address? And at first, I'm like, what brand protection? I have to follow rules. I don't know what, and then the more we thought about it, we realized, well, nothing's keeping them from sticking a sticker on it anyway. I might as well control the entire, messaging on this poster and leave them a little space. What they do with that space is their business. And they then contributed to us creating that. Same thing with the trigger cards. That was interesting. If you have these larger hospitals that are actually receiving the patients for any type of surgical treatment, the smaller medical centers, the ones that are sending patients there, often have a longer than what would be happy, or acceptable lag time if they don't already send somebody home. So we decided, well, what if the larger receiving hospital had all of their emergency information, like behind the scene contact phone numbers, sent these cards out to their hospitals, and we're like, look, if you've even got a question, give us a call. Let's get that CT. If you have it, maybe we can help speed things up. If you see any of this or you're reading any of this, ask about their medical history. Ding, ding. That's when Think Aorta, Think Family, our initiative from the Think Aorta organization, that's how that initiative was born. And so I want to hear what these other countries, what they come up with. If it means we need to have more parties and be like, Brazil, I'm open to that. But you never know till you try and you see what's going to actually get the interest of this campaign. But we did have something that's huge, that's taking the interest of the campaign. And that is your Aortic Dissection, the Patient Guide.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. We both have one that's like right here. Wait, let me get mine right there, right by my
yours.
side.
There you go. Yeah, I have one. You can't see mine because I've got it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But Aortic Dissection, the Patient Guide is another thing that we've exported successfully. So, like I said, I'm just a patient who's had an aortic dissection and survived. When I left hospital, there was no information about what had happened to me or how I was supposed to go on and live my life. And I talked to some other patients, and we all said the same. What are we supposed to do now? That we go, what is this thing we just had, and what did it involve, and what operation did I have, and what is my life now going to be like, and how do I explain this to my friends and family? Beyond saying I had a big heart attack, which isn't true, So we got together and we said, we need to write a book, and we need to write it. Patients need to write it for other patients. So we produced, it's a 96-page handbook in the UK. I think the US edition is slightly longer. And it's Aortic Dissection, the Patient Guide, everything you need to know having had an aortic dissection. And we wrote that, and we decided that our charitable aim was to give that book to everybody in the UK and Ireland who has an aortic dissection before they leave hospital. So we work with the centres where these people are having surgery. The UK is relatively small, so there are only 29 centres. And we came to an agreement with our distribution partner, Terumo Aortic, that we would distribute free of charge cartons of the Patient Guide to every aortic surgery centre, so that we're pretty, and every centre now is giving it out. So we're pretty confident that anybody who has a dissection in the UK now leaves hospital. Had my dissection. We've had surgeons read it and say, I'm sending a copy to every one of my dissection patients for the last 10 years, and literally write a letter to them and enclose a copy of the guide because they found it so valuable. We've got other surgeons who have started giving it to junior doctors to teach them about dissection because they think it's better than the textbooks. So I think that's been a huge success. And then, of course, you came to us and said, well, that Think Aorta thing that I took from you, can I take your Patient Guide as well?
Well, that's because I was supposed to come out to this wonderful, this was in Bristol, to your event. And then there was a bigger event, which was the funeral for the Queen. And I could not come to your country and not see you. And when you showed it to me, I, all but cried my eyes out and thought, I have to have this and I have to give this. And another example of me wanting to be like you. And we were naive. We brought it back. We're like, oh, we go to the hospital. We'll just add the word the. That's all we really need to do. And we were like, oh my gosh, there's a lot we have to kind of alter here. And, key clinicians and some other, patients, we kind of tweak things that really made sense to us with the stats here in this country. And we were able to have that book. It's been out now for almost a year. And I think I just had this stats. I think we've had almost, I don't have it handy right here. We've had, oh yeah, no, I do. We have had, as of a couple days ago, we have had over 5,000 downloads in less than a year. Yeah, so that's pretty great. And that's of the English version. And we've had probably about 40 downloads of the Spanish, but the amount of books that we've gotten, I mean, I had 500 copies of Spanish. They went within the first month. I don't have any more, unfortunately. But so we already did a reprint very early on in the first year since its launch. So that's, close to 6,000 hard copies. And just like you, we don't charge anything for the book. We'll gladly take a donation to offset shipping costs, of course. But we give a hard copy to anybody that asks it. We usually, that's a great warm introduction to say, does your physician know about this? Because if you haven't gotten a copy, let me get you a postcard also with this book that you can take in, and they can just box of 25 books for free right then and there. And I mean, that is just huge. And we saw this next uptick, second wave of Think Aorta. And what I loved about that is it allowed Aortic Hope to come in and say, okay, when all of you now are thinking about the aorta, what happens to the patients now? And so we're here as the catcher's mitt, to say, okay, you thought about the aorta, here we are, and we're ready to, to provide what they need. And it just was such a great marriage of being preactive and us being reactive, and together we're proactive in getting out this campaign and awareness. And now we're going to be the second guide, fingers crossed that you love what I sent to you. And that is, hopefully it's going to be, aortic disease, the patient guide. So this kind of takes us to the prequel, I guess, of the disease element. We looked at it. We had like Star Wars episodes 4, 5, and 6, and now we're 1, 2, 3. So it kind of says, you know what, if you've had an aortic dissection, you might want your family members to look at this book. That's one group of people, because there's a history, there's a connection there. Then there's the group that just, incidentally find out they maybe have a bicuspid valve or they have an aneurysm. And oh my gosh, just like when we woke up from emergency surgery, to be those individuals that are like, wait a minute, what does this mean? They instantly freeze, they instantly become paralyzed. And this is going to help them realize, well, you don't need to, but take a minute, let's sit with it. And let me explain to you now what this means, what you actually have. And takes them right through pretty much everything after the disease element is very similar. The medications, the genetics, the support, the emotional and mental health, although things feel a little bit different when you're watchfully waiting. But now I'm in both categories. So I remember when I found out your valve is failing and you have 2 aneurysms, I'm like, wait, why? I've already been through the worst. Why? Now I'm in this other group, and every ping and pang, I'm like, oh, that's the big one. I think it all the time, but then I get a chance to go back now to this book and say, okay, this is normal what I'm feeling. I know this because I just wrote those words down. Let me, partake in some of the wisdom from all of these patients. And there's about at least 12 or 13 patients, medical students, a medical student who's now a resident. And then we're now having it clinically reviewed by about 10, at least 10 physicians, or you're all reviewing this at this point, and then we'll go for endorsement. So we're chugging along here with that train.
It's as an aortic patient, it's your job to manage your own care. And the more information you can take on board, the better job you will do of that. So this whole genre of literature, the patient guide, the aortic disease guide, what it is empowering the community to get better care. And what we're told by clinicians here is that when somebody has read the patient guide, they have a better conversation with their doctor because they're better informed. They can ask more intelligent questions, and that results in a better care plan and a better care. So it's kind of, it's to a degree, it's leveling up the relationship, because there's an information asymmetry between somebody who's studied aortic medicine their whole career and a patient who's just been diagnosed. So what we're doing is just balancing that up. And I have them on my desk. I give one to every single patient, and it's just fantastic. Keep doing it, so they really see the value. So I think more to come with the new guide, and it's great that you guys are taking that initiative. But everybody, should take home from this the message: you need to empower yourself to advocate for the best care that you need. Once an aortic patient, always an aortic patient. And so just treat it as part of your job.
I'm grinning because you're tiptoeing on the edge of what Ben and what our talking point is going to turn into at your conference, and something that we're launching at your event that we've come up here, that then subsequently the next day will be posted in a post here for everybody to learn about. So I'm excited to share with you, because all of our great minds think alike. You're so close to saying what we've come up with, and I'm like, don't say it yet. But we're already thinking it, and you're going to be like, yeah, this is what we realized. And this book is another tool towards what we're going to present and launch. When I see you, I so want to talk about it, but I'm not going to right now. So and it's having Crohn's disease. I've had this, since I was probably born, and then it eventually reared its ugly head, and my mom was sick for 30 years and everybody in my family. And when you are born into a situation like that, as I suspect, when you realize that you have Marfan's, it's just, your life becomes, that's your normal, because it's just part of you. It's like having another arm or something, it's just part of who you are. And when I started to embrace the fact that it's actually a disability, and this is a problem, it's more than just, I'm gonna skirt along the lines of what we were just saying. It's more than just what my problem is, and they tell me this is what to do, and I say yes, please, thank you. It's more than just that old school relationship. It is you really this disease is. I just know I have something that inflicts gut-wrenching, literally, pain on me, and I still have to work. I still have to provide for my family, and I just don't even know what I have. And that was my first tiptoe into, well, what is this? Can you explain it to me a little bit? And I really thank God all that revolution came when the internet really had broke at that time, because I could start to look it up and try to anybody just start looking stuff up on the internet without having those conversations with your physician. But support groups are a good place, because they can start to share what they've learned or what they're experiencing. But if a book like this were available for me with that, it would have been totally different for me. I would have felt so validated in my emotional and my physical experiences. And, I've often said that if I could go into a patient's room when they're in step-down unit after having a dissection, or if I could be at the clinic just behind a table, anybody want to talk to another survivor, I feel like I could die right now by walking to the car. They'll see that it is hopeful. It's I'm not trying to be inspiring, but they see that as I will get there. This really does take more than just 2 weeks recovery. This is a long course. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And there's something to having support or resource being provided, written by or provided by someone else like you, that just makes it very, very different than being told by a medical professional. So.
It does, and I think the power of patient stories, and you've got this whole focus on giving people hope. And I think that one of the things that gives people hope is to see people like you and I, who are living proof that it's possible to thrive after an aortic dissection and do really well. And you may be close to surgery and don't feel like that, or maybe having all sorts of issues. But if you know there are other people on the journey, and you see that you understand how they're dealing with it, it gives you hope. And I mean, see, my experience was my father, because we have Marfans, my father died of a dissection at the age of 49. So for most of my life, I expected that the same would happen to me. Because I had the genetic condition, Marfan syndrome. And actually, at the age of 50, I had the same dissection as Dad. And I remember going to the hospital. I was in the ER, and the doctor was there, said, "You've got a very serious, life-threatening aortic dissection." And I said, "Well, this is history repeating itself." I said, "Be honest with me, doctor." I said, "My dad had this. He came in the ambulance to the hospital. He died after a few days. I've got a few days, haven't I?" And that was my mindset. And this doctor said, "Yes, you are very critically ill. We'll see how you do over the next 48 hours, but we can do some things for this disease that we couldn't do 40 years ago when your dad had his dissection." And what he did in a 5-minute bedside conversation was gave me hope. And turned around my mindset entirely. And anybody can do that. So I always say to patients and to clinicians, never underestimate the power that is yours to give somebody else hope in a desperate situation, which is why I love the name of your organization, because that's what you guys do.
Thank you. All right, you know what? I'm going to check in with Joshua and see if we have anybody that's joined us today that we need to give a shout out to, or any questions.
Oh, we have many people to say hello to.
So great. Okay.
Yeah. Right from the top, Velda, Natalie, Christina, Ryan Rodimer jumped in to say hi. Donna.
Hey, Ryan, good to see you.
Right, Ryan's great guy. Shauna Pennington Beard says, "Hello, my dissection was while traveling in Ireland. Thank God for Cork University Hospital and the life-saving CT scan 5 years ago." Welcome with us, Shauna.
Yes.
Josie, she says, "Hi." Jeanette, hello from outside Ottawa. Jeanette has a question for you. How many centers are in Ireland?
So we missed that if you were telling us the question.
How many centers are in Ireland?
Oh, how many centers are in Ireland?
Okay. So it's great to have some people from Ireland, or people who dissected in Ireland, on the call, because on the 24th of September, and I are in Dublin. Clinicians. We were going to go to St James's Hospital, which is a big aortic centre in Dublin, but they haven't got a room big enough for us. So, and this is what I love about the Irish. They said, "Oh, to be sure, we'll have to find another venue then." So, so we're going for Thursday to the Guinness Storehouse in Dublin. So it's going to be great, and we're celebrating in Dublin in a way that hasn't been seen before. So there is one at St James's Hospital in Dublin. There is one at the Mater Hospital in Dublin. So there are 2 aortic centres in Dublin. And then there is one in Galway, and there is one in Cork, which I heard mention of, that saved somebody's life earlier on. So 4, as far as we are aware. Now, the population of Ireland is a lot smaller than the population of the UK, but there are quite long distances involved in travelling to those 4 centres. So 4 centres, but quite a lot happening. I was under the care of Bart's Hospital in London, which is a huge, probably the leading UK aortic centre actually. And one of the surgeons who trained there has gone to Dublin and set up the aortic service in St James's, and he's our host next week. So there's some really good stuff going on with surgery, an aortic surveillance clinic, with genetics, really developing quite quickly at St James's Hospital in Dublin, and it's really great to see.
Right.
Thanks.
On. And then Robert Glass jumped in to say hello.
Hey, Rob, good to see you.
It's great. We had a couple people from Canada too. So not that I understand other country governments, because it's not my forte. But how is that handled? Is it similarly to the states, the different provinces? I mean, is everybody just kind of going to sign on and subscribe to the campaign? How does that work? Or did
Yeah.
they each have to be sold on the idea? Not that it takes a lot of sales.
Yeah, so I think we launched in Canada in April, as I said, and our lead is Lindsay Roosh, who is a fellow Marfan patient, who is the president of GARDA, the Genetic Aortic Disease Association of Canada. So obviously, Canada is a huge country, very, very diverse, but most of the people live in Ontario. So there's a real mass of people there. But it's a national campaign, and the way to do it is, I think, to follow a model similar to the one that you've done with the aortic centers in the US, and get the aortic surgical centers to actually champion the cause. So, for example, the Peter Monk Cardiac Center in Toronto is completely on board with Think Aorta, helping us champion the campaign. Yeah. And I think that's the way to do it, because I think governmentally, yeah, Canada is quite provincial, and you run into all sorts of. I learned this in April, that they're not allowed to sell wine from British Columbia in Ontario, for example, because they grow their own wine. They grow their own grapes in Ontario.
Oh, okay.
And so we don't want obstacles like that get in the way of Think Aorta.
Yeah.
So the way to do it is through the healthcare system and through the surgical centres, and to couple that with grassroots patient activism. So patients going into hospitals. There's a lady I met. Her husband is a volunteer firefighter, and he's busy putting Think Aorta posters around fire stations. And because quite often in rural areas, the fire service and the emergency medical service are housed in the same building.
Right.
So it's a good idea to do that. So I think we'll approach it both ways, from top down from the cardiac centres and bottom up from the patients, and then get coverage across. So if anybody's interested in Think Aorta Canada, go to the global website, thinkaorta.net, and there is a Canada page where you can get in touch with Lindsay and offer help for the campaign.
That's brilliant. Perfect. Yes. Josh, anything else?
That is wonderful. Natalie says, the thing in Canada is that most of the resources are in English, few things in French, sadly. And I said, we can be that change, Natalie.
No, well, Natalie, you can be, but I would have to say that we've anticipated you there. And for the Canadian Think Aorta campaign, we already translated the poster into French. And if you go to thinkaorta.net, you can download it and share it as many times as you want.
Yeah, exactly. I know some people were asking about the book being translated into French, and I feel that I can be confident in saying there'll be a time where Canada should hopefully have their own patient guide, and then it will probably be in French.
Lindsay and Garda have already committed to producing the patient guide for Canada, and that will be English and French. So watch this space. That is coming.
That's great. Very good.
And this is how it works. People just have the energy to do it. I was just going to say, Rob Glass said hello, and I should introduce him because Rob has been working with Think Aorta US for a long time, since the beginning. But recently, he's taken on a role of supporting other countries implementing Think Aorta. So he's like a country implementation support guy. And those 8 countries I mentioned earlier who met us in Toronto, Rob is working with each of them to help Think Aorta. Rob's the man who can help you bring Think Aorta to your country.
Yes, he is.
Isn't that fantastic?
Well, he's another one that's got this great accent. So everybody just talks to him and says, yes, whatever you want. Let's shake hands. We're on board. I
don't know how he does it, but he's a Brit and he's a very charismatic one. And people just do what he says, don't they?
Pretty much.
Yeah, whatever you want, Rob.
Sure. Between him and Ben, if you were thinking you were going to, they could sell you anything. No, you're coming away with 2 now instead of just 1. All right, Josh, just going to check in, see if there's anybody else that wants to say hi or has any comments, thoughts.
Now, if there was any reference for French-speaking people, do we know of anybody who's given their survivor stories in French, perhaps?
Technical day.
Yeah, my signal, my network is really struggling today. It's super frustrating. Yeah.
So Natalie also asked what?
Are there any French-speaking resources that we might know of?
French speaking, is that what it is? French speaking resources?
Yeah.
None from us, although we have had, we did have French seatbelt covers time, and I can look to see if we have any of those still available. But I did end up giving a lot of those to Lois Dietz, to a physician in Canada who had those at one of the conferences that she was running. But I can check and see. You can always shoot me an email at info@aortichope.org, and I'll look and see what I have. But that would be the only thing I would have right now. But it's coming. It's coming. French stuff's coming.
And the French Think Aortic poster, obviously.
Yeah. Right. You can have the poster. And
you have that today.
Yeah, you can have that right now. Just push print. It'll come right out. Right there. It's the best way to really put your passions to work.
Yes.
Well, my friend, it's getting late where you are. I can't even get adjusted to the time zone. I'm so confused. My friend is board members, Terry, who's coming. She's already packed. Everything's sitting in the suitcase. I'm like, well, at least I have everything on a different, with my suitcase sitting there, and I walk past it and I keep finding more things I need to put, but I need to leave space so I can do retail therapy and bring back lots of goodies from this trip. So yeah, and I talk to myself all day and give my presentation so that I won't be so nervous when I stand up in front of all those people. Ugh.
Well, you're among friends, and we should tell everybody what this is about. So one of the things we do as a charity is we run a national aortic dissection awareness day on the 19th of September. You should all know that 19th of September is worldwide aortic dissection awareness day. That's when we all need to shout and raise awareness about this disease. So we run this national conference, and what we do with the National Patient Charity in the UK is we award the hosting to an organization that's doing great work in the field of aortic dissection. So sometimes that's a hospital, sometimes it's a research institute. This year, it's the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. So that is the oldest surgical college in the world, and they do great work training the next generation of surgeons all around the world. They're not just restricted to the UK, so you can belong to them from wherever. So we felt that needed some recognition, so we awarded them the hosting of the day. So we're going to their building in Edinburgh, which is a wonderful place, very historic, and we've got more because it's all about the patients. We don't want to make it just a medical conference. So we've teamed up patients with surgeons talks. So Karen and Ben are coming from the US. I'm really looking forward to hearing what they've got to say. And we've actually got another US couple. We've got Professor Joe Bavaria and his patient Alison Seed from Philadelphia coming over. We've got a surgeon from Europe, one from Malaysia coming over. So it's going to be a really exciting day of all things aortic dissection related, and we're delighted that some people from Aortic Hope are coming over to be with us for that. And I've been joking with Karen that she needs to wear her diamonds for the dinner the night before, so but it's not that formal, so don't worry, you'll be great.
That's hard decision when someone says dinner and they give you kind of an idea on what the men should wear, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't even know. I could break out the sequins or just simple, and you have to consult with people. So I did. I have options. Trust me, I'll bring in options.
You'll be fabulous,
I'm very much,
sure.
But I don't think I'm going to try haggis. I've looked it up. I know a lot about it. I'm thinking it might not be for me.
Well, yeah, it's not to everybody's taste, but you might just need to try a little corner of it just so you can say you have tried it.
Anthony, what's his name? I forget what Anthony Bourdain. He went on a journey and I watched it. And I just thought sometimes I'm better off just tasting it, not knowing what it is, and then making the decision, and then never know. Yeah. But I hear it's an acquired taste, but very good. So I'm willing to try anything. I'll try. I will certainly give it the try. All right. Thank you again, Gareth. It's so great to have you on here, just to myself and not for a global Think Aorta, with just you and I chatting. Countdown has begun. I will see you in 7-8 days. Very, very excited to see everybody, see all the friends and familiar faces from the last couple times I've been there. And thank you also to everybody who tuned in with us today, and your comments and your thoughts. It's all exciting to listen to that as well, because we know a lot more is coming down the pike for everybody. And before I go, please click like, please click subscribe, click the little bell, because hey, it's September. We have a lot of live events still happening this month. So many fun, exciting things. We've actually got our arts and crafts tomorrow with the aortic artist. So who wants to miss that? It's going to be a ridiculous amount of fun. So tune in. We'll see you soon. Thank you again, Gareth.
Great pleasure. Thank you all. And think aorta.
Think aorta. All right. Take care.